This weekend, Richard Branson became the first man to walk on the moon. I'm sorry. He became one of the people to fly on a plane that went close to space, but not actually into space. But it did go higher than a lot of planes go, and I suppose it is impressive. It would be more impressive if he did it in 1950, but still, well done, Richard. At least he's moved on from those hot air balloons that he was messing around with a few years ago. I'm sure he will go down in history for his various aviation reenactments. Anyhow, in order to celebrate this monumental achievement, the Securities and Exchange Commission announced on Tuesday that they're charging a space transportation company and a bunch of people associated with it for making misleading claims about their technology. The company, a SPAC, is called Stable Road Acquisition Company, and the charges relate to its proposed merger with Momentus Incorporated. It's a bit of an unusual case, and I believe it's the first securities fraud case from the current crop of SPACs. No doubt there will be more. The SEC's been clear that they're not happy with what's been going on with SPACs, and they will go after the individuals involved. There are other SPACs where the principals actually admitted to making false statements to investors, and it might be a good bet that those will be of interest to the SEC too. In truth, I think the SEC started out with this one just mainly because they wanted a space team in order to celebrate Richard Branson's historic achievement. So what is Stable Road Acquisition Corp? What's Momentus and what are they accused of? Well, Stable Road was a SPAC that raised $172.5 million back in November 2019 in order to buy weed, or as they worded it in their prospectus, to focus our search on companies in the cannabis industry which are compliant with all applicable laws and regulations, which is basically the same. They wanted to buy weed. Now, by June of last year, they decided that weed was out and space was in. I know, the story's not from the 1960s, it just sort of feels like that. Anyhow, as I explained in an earlier video about SPACs and why investors should be careful in investing in them, SPACs have 18 months to do a deal and to charge huge fees, or they have to give all of the money back and lose the few $1,000s that the sponsors invested themselves. So the Stable Road boys found a nice Russian man named Mikhail who said that he makes plasma space rockets, or at least that he tries to. Mikhail used words like rideshare, last mile, and plasma, and he explained that another company would put the satellites in space, not Richard Branson obviously because his spaceship only goes close to space, but possibly someone else, maybe even Elon Musk, for example. But one way or another, the satellites would be in space, and at that point Mikhail and his company Momentus would move the satellites into position, delivering them the last mile. Rideshare, plasma, so on. Silicon Valley stuff. Anyhow, very little of this space nonsense matters. We're running out of time with this SPAC. We've 18 months to do a deal. We have to stay focused. So what we need to know is that Mikhail had a good story about plasma space rockets, and Stable Road had $172.5 million of weed money, and the clock was ticking. Stable Road hired a space technology consulting firm. Yeah, I suppose that's a thing. And the consultants agreed that the technology was good, and a merger deal was then shrewdly negotiated. Along with the SPAC, the team pitched other investors on what's known as a PIPE, which is a private investment in public equity, and that was going to buy another $175 million worth of Momentus stock alongside the SPAC merger. All of this was announced last October. So I'm sure you're thinking that everything worked out, right? What could possibly go wrong? Well, the SEC's lawsuit claims that Mikhail was lying to the good people of Stable Road, and they passed those lies on to their investors. So far, all of the accused other than Mikhail have settled, agreeing to pay a total of $8 million to the SEC, forfeit some founder shares in the SPAC, and let the PIPE investors get their money back if they want to. So what did Mikhail lie about, I hear you ask? Well, he did actually have a plasma space rocket. It was named the El Camino after a Ute from the 1960s. The only problem is that the El Camino didn't work. Plasma space rockets are not like electric trucks. You can't just push them down a hill. The SEC complaint describes what went wrong in great detail. There are space words in the complaint like hot firings, microwave power, thruster, and burns. The takeaway is that it didn't work and they lost it. It was lost in space. Mikhail then went and lied to an esteemed space publication called Space News. He said, water plasma propulsion is now technologically mature enough to be baselined for operational in-space transportation missions. He said all of that in a Russian accent. Okay, I don't actually know if he has a Russian accent, but I feel giving him one improves the story, as it leads us to his other lies. He's additionally in trouble with the SEC as he lied about his immigration status and his national security status. Mikhail was in the US on a work visa, and in 2018 his visa was revoked. He applied for asylum, and that application was denied. As a foreign national, he could not access parts of Momentus's technology without an export license. Listen, I'm as surprised as you are that you need an export license to access the technology in some sort of broken rocket that I kind of get the impression has a microwave in it, but rules are rules. He was hardly going to sell this thing to Russia, as Russia already has rockets that work. Water plasma, last mile, ride-sharing rockets. This is designed to be sold in Silicon Valley or to stoners. Anyhow, in January of this year, after the merger was signed and announced, Mikhail stepped down as CEO of Momentus and he moved to Switzerland. At this point, I think he was just trying to look like a Bond villain. Now, this case might be a bit of a preview of how weird SEC SPAC enforcement is likely to be going forward. There's a risk that my YouTube channel will degrade into me just reading SEC complaints out word for word with a confused look on my face. So don't forget to subscribe if you want to watch that. Just to be clear, this SPAC merger has not actually closed yet. While Mikhail allegedly lied about plasma rockets and microwaves to sell his company, the SPAC's shareholders still get to vote on the deal. If they don't like what they're getting or what they read in the SEC order, they can just vote against the deal or ask for their money back. SRAC closed at $10.66 today. So if you got in at the IPO price of $10, you've actually just made money so far. The only problem is that the SPAC traded as high as $27 back in February, and so people who bought at that price have lost a lot of money. These people have been harmed by the lies that they were told and by the quality of due diligence done by the SPAC sponsors. The merger agreement was amended 2 weeks ago, essentially cutting the price of Momentus in half to account for the problems that have since been disclosed. So if the SPAC investors do stay in, they get twice as much equity, but in a company with questionable technology. One thing that we are learning from this case is that if you are a SPAC sponsor and you are lied to and you then pass those lies on to your investors, the SEC can go after you, even if you hired a space technology consulting firm. One final thing, if you like this content but want to listen on your commute or at the gym, an audio version is available. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever podcast platform you usually use. That's all for now. See you next week. Bye.